畑が広がる懐かしの地よさらば遥か遠き知らん。
Hello and welcome to today's Battletech review. Today we are going to be looking at the Shrike, which got quite popular during the late Republican era and especially during the Battle of Terra. While its replacement was already on the field at that point, there were quite a few warriors from Clan Jade Falcon who were still using the Shrike as their primary assault mech. And I would say here with Malvina Eisen still piloting one or Black Rose there, it got quite popular and got a lot of people to have eyes on it. Is it a great mech? Well, it's in a special category in my opinion. It's a very special fast assault, but it can be used in a variety of ways and is rather competent at what it does. So let's get into it. To talk about the Shrike means that we need to talk about the partial wing. It's an odd thing that was started showing up in the late invasion and early Civil War era, if you recognize history with these particular name, and it has a questionable utility depending on what you want it to do. It's better than a improved jump jets, at least in my opinion, but it doesn't mean that it's a fantastic piece of hardware. It has its uses. And really, to look at the Shrike, you need to know a little bit more about the partial wing. And I have a few presentations upcoming that have a little bit more to talk about the various new technologies, at least technologies that were not standard until more recently. I am quite partial to the partial wing. It's much better than improved jump jets in many ways in terms of space efficiency and weight efficiency on most mechs. It is not the greatest technology of all time, but it does give you extra lift and mobility while in the air, giving you an average of 60 extra meter of jump jet range on a mech that's a 55 ton or smaller, and 30 extra meters on anything that's bigger. So on lighter mechs, I think it's more worth it. On heavier mechs, not as much. The surface can also be used as an extra heat sink system to control the heat, which is a nice little bonus. It is a little bit bulky though, and it does take up 5 to 7% of a mech weight, depending on if it's an inner sphere graded one or a clan graded one, as usual. So it is a thing that you need to think about. It's not a thing that you just add to every mech just for the fun of it. The original test of the partial wing came on the Cougar, and it was not a really smashing success. It worked, of course, but really nobody saw justification to really use it, and it really didn't do as much as people wanted. It also turned the Cougar from an Omni-Mech to a non-Omni-Mech because of a structural change. It needed a little while before those partial wing Cougar went back to being Omni-Mech with a full engine and a full cockpit reassembly. It lingered around on a few experimental things. You've got clan warriors have custom 2C models like Griffin 2Cs with a partial wing and things like that. And every once in a while, you had a Solaris jock that was playing with them in the Solaris arenas. The real full production machines with partial wing were probably the Mark II of the Flamberge, which was originally an Omni-Mech but turned into a regular mech because of that, once again, structural change. It could be an Omni-Mech again if they changed the gyro, modified the computers and everything. I'm not sure if the Jade Falcons ever messed with that. I don't have enough Flamberge floating around to tell you. And the light mech, the Hiri, in 3087. Both of those are pretty decent little machines here, and they really showed that you could do decent things with a partial wing. It was Olivety Weaponry that had become the main provider of weaponry for the Clan Jade Falcon that noticed that the specs of these things were laying around, and they wanted to see what happened if they made mechs with them. The Falcons needed more symbol of their might and their courage after the Jihad, and really there they wanted those new machines that looked a little bit more bird-like to be like their new totem mechs. Totem mechs became far more popular after the Jihad with the various clans that were now in the inner sphere because, well, the War of Reavings had kicked them out of clan space. It's an odd situation overall. It wasn't until the introduction of the Gear Falcon, however, or Gear Falcon, I'm not quite sure you're supposed to say that, I always said Gear Falcon, where the partial wing really came onto the map, as it was a new standard mech that was using it to great efficiency. Olivity had that good understanding of how the wings worked from the previous two mechs, and it was clear that the Falcon still needed mech during the Republican era, with the loss of all of their factories in the homeworlds. They were very lucky to have all of those formerly Lyran planets that had massive factories and massive industrial plants. And with knowledge of that the clans brought into it, well, those factories became really, really productive, which is a thing that, is quite scary. The Gear Falcon is a mobile striker / sniper, and every other manufacturer in the Falcon were jealous that they were not getting a piece of the pie, because that thing was making them a lot of money. That's when the Eagle Craft Group came in with the plans for the Shrike in 3113, and they wanted to replace the Onager that had been one of their specialized assault mech that they had been building recently. It was specialized in mobility, and the design could really be viewed as being a little bit underarmed for a mech its size, but Clan Jade Falcon commanders were really happy with it because they wanted something that was fast and had decent punch. It's not the best damage per shots that you have, but it is truly a very powerful machine in the end. Its overall performance made it popular with the more aggressive warriors of Clan Jade Falcon, which was quite popular with what became the Mongol faction, led by Khan Malvina Heisen, who was, quite an individual, for better or for worse. If you want to read up about her, she is quite a lady, and Urdette in the Battle of Terra might not be a bad thing overall. The Shrike is one of the big boy mechs at 95 ton, but it's not an Omni-mech, unlike what some people would actually expect. There weren't that many new Omni-mechs being built in that particular era, mostly because, there was limited resources that the clans had access to, and they wanted to focus building their Omni-mechs with what was already existing, while new mechs were being introduced for everything else. Now, the Falcon engineers wanted something that worked, and they started copying the command console from the Highlander, same with the reinforced leg assembly from the Highlander. Yes, the legs are quite different from an Highlander's leg, but if you look at the actuators and how they're set up, it really is quite reminiscent of the darn thing. The Highlander being one of the better mechs in its particular category, it's a good thing, and the reinforced leg assemblies on those things basically mean this thing can do death from above, and it's going to be pretty nasty. The engine is a massive Olivety 380 XL engine, giving you a top speed of 65 kilometers per hour, which is good on an assault mech, and is coupled with a full set of jump jets and a partial wing, giving you a jump range of 150 meter, which is quite similar to your 275 Mafia and other mechs in that particular category. So it is decently fast, it can jump really far for a mech its size, and is very good at death from above. All things that are going to be quite significant in the long run. Being a non-Omni mech, you can use all sorts of advanced materials, and it doesn't really matter because everything is going to be fixed on there. So you get 15 tons of ferrofibrous plate covering an endosteel skeleton, meaning that you're saving quite a bit of weight on a mech this size, and the 15 tons of plates there, it's going to protect you very, very well as on a mech at this size and this mobile as well. I'm not quite sure why the Falcons went with 12 laser eat sinks instead of standard double eat sinks on the Shrike. It makes managing to eat from the different weapons well enough, and it's going to be good when you're in a dangerous environment. The one issue I have with that here is that laser eat sinks are very good if you're fighting in space, but this thing doesn't have any liquid storage in it or room for liquid storage. You'd have to make another variant or a very custom machine to use it. So it is an odd choice, and it's spending money on a thing that is maybe not necessary. Arguably, you've got two sets of main weapons on there, which might sound a little bit weird there, but it's really a pair of either ER large lasers mounted in the torso, which gives you pretty darn decent sniping ability and decent damage, as those are clan ER large lasers, or the pair of arm-mounted Ultra AC5s fed by 2 tons of reload. It's not a whole lot of reload, and the ammo feed is a little bit odd on them, but it should be enough for most fight, or at least most direct strikes that the Falcons are really happy with. This is all guided by an integral targeting computer, so it's quite accurate, a big advantage on top of things. And you have a 10 rack of LRMs in order to get you some indirect fire capabilities. I'm not sure if I would have gone with that, or rather a set of SRMs. Maybe the SRMs would have been a little bit better for either tank hunting capabilities or just getting things close by and giving it a good 1-2 punch with your main guns and this. All in all, it is nothing to sneeze at, and while it's not the most powerful and most well-armed 95-ton out there, its mobility will allow it to bring these weapons to bear every time it needs to, and get to places that you might not expect it to be. A Mark II Shrike was commissioned fairly soon after in 3115, and there was some minor changes to it, but there's nothing really very different on it. This one here, I had to rebolt that arm on there with the main guns here. Honestly, all the Shrikes I've gotten recently are from the Battle of Terra. I bought them while I was traveling to Terra last year, and well, they're all in various shapes of disrepair, and even with the best care that I have, I think those things are going to stay as either museum pieces, or I'm going to give them for training regiments and training units throughout the Trade Alliance here. The big difference on this one here is that ER large lasers are swapped with lighter ER medium lasers, giving you a better EAT curve and a decent amount of damage, but not as much as the ER large, and of course not as much range. I mean, it just means that you have two inner sphere large lasers in your torso. How bad could that be? The big difference, though, is that the main guns in the arm are replaced with a pair of Ultra 10 class autocannons with 3 tons of reload, which is, well, rather fantastic. The Ultra 10 is a very, very nice gun in the clan lineup, and probably one of my favorite in that particular category. Probably helps that being a clan autocannon, it uses standard rounds throughout the entire lineup, making everything easier to do. The LRM is still on there. Once again, maybe I should have swapped that out for an SRM, but that's how they decided to go with it. And you still have that targeting computer to make sure that every shot count for your big guns. This is still a very nice design. It just is a derivative of the original. The Shrike Mark III is probably the most famous of the bunch because it was used by Can Melvina Hazen, and it was her Black Rose. The one I got, I was promised was not Black Rose, but seeing how damaged and how beat up that thing always ends up being, I feel that it might be cursed just with Melvina Hazen looking over my shoulder whenever I try to fix it. This one's a true sniper, using a pair of targeting computer-guided ERPPCs and the torso-mounted ER large lasers as its main weapons. You're going to run extensively hot if you shoot all of that all the time, but it does give you a variety of things, and these ERPPCs, well, they're very nice at decapitating people if you know what you're doing. To compensate for the spike in EAT generation, you have a total of 17 laser EAT sinks that are used on there in conjunction to the partial wing, allowing you to sink about 37 EAT per cycle. So you can easily jump and shoot the ERPPCs with no issues. Or if you start shooting everything, well, you are still probably going to start feeling the EAT and maybe even shut down. There is a new Shrike, however, that came out after the Battle of Terra. This one here was basically built off the things that they learned during the Battle of Terra, and where this was a battle where physical attacks were far more popular than they were any time else, for the clans at least. This mixes some of the basic and the second one together with a big addition later on. The ER large lasers are swapped for the smaller ER medium lasers, and you still have the Ultra 5 class autocannon, so you do lose on direct fire potential, but with the saved weight you add a set of talons on the legs. Basically the leg assembly is, well, reinforced on top of being reinforced, and basically the feet are added an extra layer of a special reinforced armor on them, so you are able to do far stronger kicks with it, and if you landed that from above with that thing, you are probably going to crush whatever you land on. This is a big threat, but it's very different from a lot of other mechs in its category at least. The actual evolution of the Shrike, however, is the new 85-ton Jade Phoenix Omni-Mech from, once again, Eagle Craft Group. These things started showing up right before the Battle of Terra, and it's another assault mech with a partial wing that is highly mobile, but it also packs a significant amount of firepower in most of its standard configuration. It's also a true totem mech because the designers are claiming that every single one of them comes with a milligram of armor taken off Aiden Prize Timberwolf from the Battle of Tukayid. I have serious doubts about that, and I don't think anybody could prove that, but still, it's a decent enough machine, and I will try to have a couple at some point to talk about. Honestly, I am surprised that this thing was not built as an Omni-Mech, but you will also see quite a few machines from Clan Wolf in that particular category as well, being built as standard mechs, even though they were meant to be like somewhat of a totem machine. In the mid-Republican era, you had a lot of the clans trying to rebuild their Toman. They had been damaged heavily during the Jihad. They did do some lip service to the disarmament programs that the Republic was putting through as well, but a lot of them also didn't have the resources or the political will to be able to do it. Managing to get full factories going with building brand new machines, brand new equipment is not always the easiest thing to do when you're basically holding everybody down with a caste system that is a bit too restrictive. It's not to say that there's a lot of good mechs in that particular category. We're going to talk about some of them later as well. It's just not as good as I would expect from some of the clans, at least from the clan invasion era where they were really at the peak of their power. So I thank everybody for listening to me for so long. I hope you guys have a nice rest of your day, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.